If you have to do the StratSim marketing simulation for your class, you might be like me and be a little apprehensive because you've been told to read this entire student manual, which is very long, and you're still wondering like, how is this actually going to work when it comes to the simulation? So I'm going to show you some of how the simulation works. So when you log in, you go to simulation, launch team simulation, and then extra window will pop up. So as you can see, my group, we're already done. We're in period 10, but of course if you get a practice round, you'd probably be in period -1 or period 0. So we'll look at it from period 0 because this is where you should be starting too. So I was firm D, but I added things to my dashboard using this edit feature so that I could get an overview of how we did in the past period based on this main spot. So some that were important for my class were like firm preference and dealer rating. So to actually make decisions, you normally have to be in the results and decisions area to see how you compare to your competitors who usually are generally using this area. And then this area, the tools section, is important to use to run tests. For our class, it was important to run these so our professor would see that we've done them and so that we could get an idea of what decisions were best to make. So I recommend that you make some sort of Excel file like this one, where you make all of the vehicle classes that you compete in. So everyone has a family vehicle. So I recommend putting all of the different family vehicles and then every period saying how many units they sold, the share of class, MSRP, their advertising, their theme, and then all their upgrades and things. I sometimes would do how many units were sold in different regions, but I found that this area wasn't as helpful. But this overall was really helpful to do. So as you can see, I had a family vehicle, we had an economy vehicle, we had a truck, and then we eventually added a utility vehicle. So later on, you can see the utility vehicles. But this was always really helpful so we could jump between periods and see how things were going for our vehicles and for our competition to kind of help keep everything in one place. It was also really helpful to do this before we made decisions so that it made us really look at the whole full picture of how our vehicle was doing, and then it gave us ideas of what things we needed to do to improve. So I definitely recommend a chart like this, and then dividing if you're in a group, maybe one team member does each section. It doesn't take long to do it though. So I'm going to show you how I would get these numbers. So I personally liked to go into vehicle sales, and I would go by the different classes. So the family vehicle is usually where I'd start, and you can see all the family vehicles are listed there. This was for period, on here we're looking at period 0. So let's look at period 6 on both of them. Okay, and I just didn't change that to say 6, but that is period 6. So as you can see, I would put in how many units, like Alpha had 245 units, and I'd put it on here. And then I could see, all right, overall, we were from D with a Defy. So we had the second most units, a pretty high share of class, but we're also way more expensive than the one that had more units sold. And so we were more going for a quality differentiation, and they're more going for a cost leadership differentiation. So this was helpful because, for example, I could look and see, I could tell that this vehicle had been upgraded recently, and so that might be one of the reasons that they jumped up and sold so many units. The other thing that doing this would show me is that this vehicle, some vehicles have really low inventory. That means that they might do a minor or a major reduction. For example, BOFO, they're probably not going to do an upgrade on their vehicle because then they'd have to pay to get rid of 277 days of inventory, which would be millions and millions of dollars. So generally, if we were going to do an upgrade, we wanted our number to be under 30 days inventory, so that we wouldn't have to spend too high of an amount on that. Okay. So this was a good starting point every week. And this is where this vehicle sales spot is where I would get most of the data. So a lot of it's on there. And then what isn't on there, you can click the vehicle name and get like this little star means they upgraded it, and you could see the new specs. If it says they upgraded it, but none of these numbers are any higher than they were in the past period, that means that they did a cost reduction. So they made it so that it's cheaper to make the vehicle. The other things that we would do, so most of this could come from this page, but the only thing that couldn't was this dealer discount and days inventory. So to get that, we'd go to marketing communications and we'd click on the firm, and it would have it broken down per vehicle, what the dealer discount was and what the day's inventory were. Okay. So first I would do that to try to get a better understanding of where everything was and where you landed. Then we often would do different tests. So this sales by microsegment helps you realize where your vehicle, like what microsegments it really attains to. I would recommend doing this in the practice round if you get one, because it costs money and it probably won't change much unless you majorly modify the specs. The focus group test was another one. So you can see what we did. We'd buy a focus group for which markets we sold vehicles in. And so then we could see how we compared. So 2F is the family market. And so you can see that we were the second highest vehicle in this class, because we tend to go, our family vehicle did a couple different ones. It competed in 1E, it competed in 4F, a couple others. So it gives you kind of how people perceive your vehicle as compared to others. This hot is telling you that this is a really important button or important feature to that micro segment. So for example, some teams in our game were like really focusing for family vehicles on interior. For them, that was probably smart because they were more of a luxury vehicle. However, for us, that wouldn't have been smart positioning, because we're trying to be like the average person family vehicle, and they don't really care about interior. So we shouldn't spend a lot of money and make our vehicle more expensive for something that they don't care about as much. So it's really important that those hot buttons is where you're doing well. Concept test is something we would run a lot, so you can see that this is what some look like when they have been run. So if I jump to period 10, you can see what it will look like for you. So you would pick which micro segment you want to target, and then you'd have to have something in the development center, and you click that thing that you have in the development center as a project and what price you could run it at to see. So when we did that in period 6, for example, we did it with our economy vehicle. We said, okay, our economy vehicle, it goes largely in 1E, which is the value seekers economy class. And at this price, how will it be perceived by the market? This likely to buy is really important. If you're going to launch a new vehicle, one mistake we made is we didn't do enough of these. And so we should have done this to make sure our likely to buy was very high, so that when we launched the vehicle, it would be like the best vehicle on the market. Instead, our utility vehicle really wasn't that great. It never amounted to be too much. So that concept test is really helpful, especially when you're starting a new product. We didn't really use competitive mapping, so I'm not sure what to tell you about that one. Then perceptual mapping, we didn't really use. Test market, we used all of them every time. So test market, what it will look like for you, we'll jump to period 10 so you can see when you're making decisions, this is what it looks like. You pick your vehicle and you pick which features you want to test to run a study. Now, in the manual, it recommends that you only change one of these things at a time, because otherwise you won't be able to see how it impacts. Because if you change price and advertising, for example, you can't tell which change is making which impact. Generally, it's really important to know that when you're launching a new vehicle, you got to follow that product life cycle. You need to be really heavy on advertising so that people will know what it is. And then when you make upgrades, we saw that some firms, when they'd make upgrades, they'd always up their advertising, and that seemed like a good strategy. We would always run all 10 of these, and so it actually became hard. We'd run out of them. And what's important is once you've bought the test, you can see we made the price of our economy vehicle $13,475. We made our advertising $50, and we tried our promo at $18. And so it shows you what it has been like this past period, and then what you'd be changing it to. So in this test, we actually changed 2 features, which we probably shouldn't have done. But our awareness, it made our awareness go up. It made our unit market share go down a little bit, probably because we increased the price. And then even though our unit market share went down, the overall value of the whole market share, it goes up. And so then it shows you this one's the really important number. What's the net contribution impact of this decision? So that's a really positive one. A lot of times you'll get under 10 million plus or minus. And so we would always choose the decision that resulted in the most positive net contribution impact. So I definitely recommend that test. We never used either of these ones. The other thing I totally recommend you do if you have to do StratSim for your class is that you invest in B2B. So if you're in period 0, B2B, you can't really see anything. What you have to do is allocate a sales force. Let me show you how to do that. I recommend before you make any vehicle, you first go and you buy contracts on it. So you can go get information in B2B contracts and it'll tell you what type of vehicle each company looks for. So like GB Stews only takes economy vehicles. If you meet their specifications, you will definitely sell 33 units. So for example, if you're going to make a new utility vehicle, this is something we should have done and we didn't. We should have bought all the utility contracts, so all the contracts that had a U, and we should have made sure that our vehicle would meet at least one of the specifications for a B2B contract, because then we would have had some guaranteed sales with it. So first you start here. I recommend putting this into like a Paint document so you can see both things on one page. But then you buy the contracts or allocate Salesforce to any and all. So at one point we just checked all of them. And then next time after you've checked all of them, takes a whole period, and then your Salesforce tells you what the people want. So you can click on it and it will tell you this is the exact specifications that this B2B contract requires. So for us, this was completely out of reach because this coverage rate was such a high percent that we were never going to reach it. So we didn't pursue this contract, even if our actual vehicle would have met these specifications. So you buy a ton of contracts and you see which ones yours is going to work with. And then once it's time, you bid on the contract. So I probably won't be able to completely show you this because we're already done. But we had 2 different B2B contracts that we could do. So Euro Car Rentals was a family vehicle and our Defy one qualified. So if you look at Euro Car Rentals, you can see this is their specifications. So since we met these specifications, then we had this drop-down menu where we could click our Defy vehicle and make sure that it also met the vehicle attribute specifications. Then once it did, you type in your bid. So if you think other teams also have vehicles that qualify for the same contract, which you can check, you can look on your handy chart you made and see if they meet the specifications. So if they meet the specifications and you've noticed that they've allocated sales forces, which I'll show you how to do, then you might not want to do the highest bid price because they might outbid you. However, we knew we were the only one, because I kept track of what the other groups were doing. We knew we're the only ones going after B2B with the exception of one other firm, Firm C. But Firm C's vehicles were completely different than ours, so they couldn't bid on the same contracts that we could. So we'd put in our vehicle that qualified, and we always did the highest price possible because we knew we were going to get the bid. Then it's important that you check this preferred box. And what that does is it says, we want twice as many units if we are the best supplier. And we are always the best supplier, like I said, in these ones because the other firms couldn't have qualified. So we, every single period, got to do this, and every single period, it resulted in an additional 146 sales between these 2 vehicles. And it was really good, especially there's one period where the economy kind of dipped and gas prices were high, and we still had these guaranteed units. So I would have, if you're just starting out, I really recommend B2B and maybe even doing it more than we did. So when we first started B2B, we noticed one of our vehicles wasn't completely in the specifications. So we had to do a vehicle upgrade in order to get it into the specifications. And it wasn't this vehicle, it was our Delight, which was our economy vehicle. We weren't meeting this interior, the safety, the quality, the size, stuff like that. So you need to do an upgrade. You go into the product development section. Okay, so this concept is how you make a completely brand new car. Remember to do those tests first to make sure that the car you're going to make, people are going to want. But if you don't want to make a new car and you want to do any sort of upgrade, that's where you do it here. So you normally start with 2 development centers. We, very first period, made an extra development center, which I recommend so that we could do a lot more. We should have done way more cost reductions all the time. But we thought we'd have to write off our inventory, and you don't. So to do a cost reduction, you click the vehicle, you just click cost reduction, and you hit upgrade. It's that simple. Now it charges you to do it, But as you can see, the base cost then goes down from 15,484 per vehicle to 251 per vehicle. And so over time, if you keep doing these cost reductions, you'll make more per vehicle. So that's a good way to go. So that's cost reduction, and that's how you throw it away. So if you want to do something different though, so let's say we wanted to do a minor upgrade, this means next period, these changes will be there. You can increase however many features you want, and then, or decrease, or just keep current. So we usually didn't change too many things. Then you'd hit upgrade, and it tells you, because of how many you have, this is how much it's going to cost to write off that current inventory. We must have a lot of defies left over at the end of the game, because that's a huge write-off. I don't recommend writing off that much. So if you're in this situation, I would do a cost reduction and make way less of them for next period, and the next period do the upgrade, because that's going to hurt. But anyhow, let's say you do it. Then it shows you what that base cost is going to go up to, and you've increased all these attributes, and again, how much it's going to cost right now to do the project. The last kind of upgrade you can do is you can do a major upgrade. And so that you can like type in whatever features you want, but this takes 2 periods and ties up your development center as well. It also will throw away current inventory at the end of that. So it's pretty expensive to do these, and it's time consuming, but overall this may be good if you're trying to make huge jumps. So let's say that's what our upgrade was going to do. You can see how much it impacts it. And then it tells you when it will be launching. So there was one time when we needed our elite vehicle to go up in size. We were going to do a major upgrade, but we noticed that we could do 2 minor upgrades and actually get a better result and not have it tied up for so long. But of course, I don't know if you noticed, but the major upgrades, the current expenditures, they get spread out. So it really just depends on your financing at that point, if that's the same decision you want to make. I'm trying to think what else we need to show you. So once you've made all of your decisions, you've used the test market to figure out exactly how much you're going to sell things for and what your advertising and promotion rates should be. Then to actually do that, you go into consumer marketing, and you can change everything here. So then we could make our defy, we could change the price, we could change the dealer discount, we could change the advertising, the theme, whatever. So generally family vehicles, we always did quality and safety, like we saw earlier, those hot buttons. So we overall for our company really advertised about quality, and that was one of our strategic things. It's also important that you have your segmented targets. So any targets you're going after, that you advertise towards them. So this is where you could actually change every feature. The sales forecast, there's fancy ways to calculate, but I normally would just put what we sold last time in here, because it should be pretty similar from thing to thing. Or if you know you're doing like you're making it way cheaper and you expect sales to go up, then you can estimate it here. Make sure you change these numbers, because that impacts your pro forma. And then lastly, after you've made all these decisions, every time you need to make manufacturing decisions. So what I would always do is, on a typical period, I would take however many we sold last time. I'd subtract what our current inventory is, unless we did an upgrade and this is all going away. And that would give me how many more we needed to sell the exact same amount as last time. And then I would make an additional 10 to 15 vehicles from there, because what you don't want to happen is you don't want to run out of vehicles, because then you miss out on potential sales. We always kept this flex button checked. And as you can see, it allows production to go up or down by 10% if you have any unexpected demand. So it costs you more, because then you're paying your staff overtime and things like that, but you get more sales. So we always kept this checked, but hope we wouldn't have to use it. And I recommend that. To change the actual production, you of course just click on it and type in whatever you're wanting to make. So this number, you need to make sure you're also making enough for B2B. One flaw with StratSim is that it doesn't always include B2B numbers everywhere. Sometimes you have to kind of go do that yourself. You can also make a lot of financing decisions. I'll be honest with you, someone on my team had an accounting degree, so I didn't really do too much of the financing decisions. They really took the lead on that part. And yeah, we didn't overall get we weren't the team winner or anything, but our vehicle was usually pretty successful. And would have helped me to have somebody just run me through how to use this instead of just reading a 200-page manual and getting really confused. Um, so hopefully that makes sense. And I'll probably lose access to the software pretty soon, so I don't know how much help I will be beyond that. But there's one other thing I can show you as we're going, and that is in the actual website. So on the dashboard, you can see all your different decisions and when you had to do things by. But under results, there's this comparative results piece, and you can look for different periods, and it shows you a lot of different metrics. So one thing we should have done is we knew we were being graded on our return on marketing, like all these different attributes. So we should have been using this and monitoring these more closely, because again, it's just all in one space, which is really nice to have it all right there. The other thing, of course, is the resources, which has the student manual. If your professor doesn't make you read this thing is the StratSim Bible. I definitely recommend using it. Overall, I think that's pretty much it. So good luck on StratSim.